Today marks the 15th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, and even after all of these years, there is still no doubt in my mind that it is the best of the prequel trilogy, and here's why. Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome to another Let's Discuss video. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's topic, we are going to be looking at why Revenge of the Sith is the best of the prequel trilogy on its 15th anniversary. Be sure to stick around until the latter half of the video, where I will be joined by not one, not two, not even three, but 5 special guests, who will be giving you their opinion on why it is the best of the prequel trilogy, and sharing just why they love it so much. So without further ado, you will hop right into things. I think the best place to start is probably by comparing it to the two that came before it, and those being Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. Firstly, The Phantom Menace has its exciting moments, and you actually learn quite a lot about the Jedi and Sith, their ways of life, including their beliefs and what it takes to become one. But what The Phantom Menace suffers from is what I like to call tonal identity crisis. The movie can't decide if it wants to be a serious political thriller chronicling Palpatine's rise to power, which are some of the better moments as we watch him plant seeds on either side in order to navigate his way through into a position of power, or if it wants to be a fun, goofy kids movie. Basically, anytime Jar Jar Binks is on screen, it's either going to be slapstick or cheap, gross-out comedy. While Anakin has some great moments, there are also an equal amount, if not even surplus, of moments that end up falling completely flat. The only moments that stay genuinely thrilling are when you're following the Jedi, and of course you can't talk about The Phantom Menace without mentioning the Duel of the Fates, that being the handicap match between Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Maul. Meanwhile, Revenge of the Sith does not suffer from this. It knows what it is, and it is by far the darkest of the prequels. I mean, come on, think about it. The movie starts off with Count Dooku being decapitated execution style. Then Kit Fisto and a handful of other Jedi are murdered by Palpatine. Then Palpatine gets his face mutilated by Force lightning. Mace Windu gets his hand chopped off and he gets sent out the window. Anakin slaughters a group of children. General Grievous blows up and dies in a fiery blaze of glory. Order 66 gets executed, killing almost all of the Jedi. Anakin slaughters the remaining Separatist leaders, and then to top it all off, Obi-Wan dices Anakin up into an angry baked potato, and Padme dies either in childbirth or of a broken heart, I don't really know, something along those lines. And then we switch to Attack of the Clones, which is not as awful as most people say. It has its entertaining moments, and the build-up towards the Clone Wars is well done. Obi-Wan definitely has the more interesting bits, but where it falls flat is the relationship between Anakin and Padme. It's awful. They have zero chemistry, and Anakin just comes off as a creep because he's constantly making sexual advances towards her, even though she almost always constantly rejects him. And then we snap suddenly to moments of happiness and giggling, like it makes no sense to me at all. Plus, that I love you at the end was so forced, it's painful. And although poor Hayden Christensen has taken more than enough hate over the years, his line delivery is so poor and so cringeworthy, it brings down what should be some very emotionally impactful moments. The final battle itself is actually very entertaining, despite looking like either a full-blown cartoon or a video game cinematic at times. And then you have Christopher Lee, who is of course a standout, and once again the political stuff actually ends up being some of the more interesting parts. Revenge of the Sith, however, spends a lot less time with them, being Padme and Anakin, and it's more about Anakin basing his choices around saving Padme's life. When they are together, it's not quite as bad as it was, and Anakin does seem sincerely happy when Padme reveals she's pregnant. And it's able to stay entertaining and pretty action-heavy the whole way through, rather than switching back and forth between the exciting stuff and the, not-so-exciting stuff. So, Revenge of the Sith by far has the highest stakes, most exciting, intense, and of course epic battles, both on the grander scale of the Clone Wars, and what is likely the most well-choreographed lightsaber duels. Palpatine's manipulation of the Republic and of Anakin is masterful and pure genius, and the visuals are also a huge step up from the previous two, and they actually hold up pretty well today for the most part anyway, and witnessing Order 66 firsthand is completely devastating. And the last little part I want to focus on is the fact that time has both been the best friend and worst enemy to Revenge of the Sith. The worst enemy in the sense is that these movies haven't really aged all that well. Like, the original trilogy, by doing everything practical on sound stages and all that stuff, still holds up pretty well, but the overuse of really cheap, early in development visuals really brings you out of a lot of moments in these movies, especially the first two. Thankfully, Revenge of the Sith is a bit better, but still, a lot of the visuals don't hold up, a lot of the dialogue comes off awkward and clunky, and certain little story beats just don't kind of fit. But where time has been its best friend is because of all the stuff that has come out leading up to Revenge of the Sith, and the main one, of course, being the Clone Wars TV series. Because although their chemistry is half decent, you don't necessarily buy into Obi-Wan and Anakin's brotherhood. You only consider that they are so close because you're told to, and the same thing goes with Padme and Anakin. The Clone Wars establishes these relationships and makes them more believable than any of the prequels even came close to. You have years and years worth of content there. You see the bickering, but also the love between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and you see that relationship stay a secret and really develop and blossom into something beautiful between Anakin and Padme. Overall, the biggest issue that is persistent in the prequels is the cringeworthy dialogue. The storytelling is actually really good, and Palpatine's manipulation both in politics and of Anakin are expertly done, and some of the best stuff in Star Wars in general. Ian McDiarmid and Ewan McGregor are of course the standouts of the entire trilogy, and it's no different here with Revenge of the Sith. The visuals are leaps and bounds better in Revenge of the Sith, the stakes are higher, the story is darker, the battles are fantastic, and Anakin's descent, or rising pending how you look at it, is phenomenal. The Clone Wars has done nothing but help this film become better than it ever was, and although Padme and Anakin still aren't entirely believable due to Hayden's line delivery and lack of chemistry, it truly feels like everything comes full circle. And now it is time for that special portion of the video where I will be joined by 5 guests. First up is going to be Larry from LC Screen Talk. Take it away, Larry.
My name is Larry from LC Screen Talk, and first of all, thank you so much, Brett, for inviting me on to talk about Revenge of the Sith. Easily my favorite of the prequel trilogy, and in honesty, one of my favorite Star Wars films of all time. I love Revenge of the Sith. Despite its shortcomings, it completely nails investing you as a viewer into the emotional arc and storyline being told. When Order 66 hits, you are gut punched as you're watching this take place. The intercut final battles between Palpatine and Yoda, as well as Obi-Wan and Anakin, are beautifully done, really well shot, and expertly animated, and expertly rendered in terms of special effects. Not to mention, if you ask me, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, has the best musical score for a singular film in the entire Star Wars franchise. This musical score is amazing. And honestly, the music does a lot in helping with the overall tone and emotion that this film delivers. So that is why I personally love Revenge of the Sith. And thank you again, Brett, for letting me come on and talk about it.
And I totally agree with you on William's score. I too think it's the best of the entire Skywalker saga. And I know some people might think that all the Star Wars movies sound the same, and while they do sound very similar, but if you listen closely, you will realize that there are subtle changes based on the tone of the movie and which era of the Star Wars universe that it takes place in. And next up is Joe from Color Positive Movies.
Thanks to Brett at BAM2 TV for letting me be a part of this. Revenge of the Sith is easily my favorite of the prequels, and I know exactly why. It's darker, and it's grittier. Empire and Rogue One are my favorite Star Wars movies for that same reason. There's just something heavier and there's more at stake. And we get this with Revenge of the Sith. Yes, we know what happens to Anakin, but we also see the full story arc. Anakin is a boy, he's a Jedi, he's going to bring balance to the Force, and he gets seduced to the dark side. We get to see all that, and it's tragic. And of course, high ground. It's hard not to mention Revenge of the Sith without high ground. It's just one of those moments now. You know it's coming. Obi-Wan's about to say it, and it just becomes, that moment. So that's another reason why I enjoy Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, actually. My favorite movies as well in the Star Wars universe are both Rogue One and The Empire Strikes Back for the same reasons. I love the darker and grittier aspects of Star Wars, and Revenge of the Sith is definitely that. And now we have Nuwan from The Movie Slinger.
Hey guys, Nuwan here with Movie Slinger Reviews. I've always had a soft spot for the prequels because I grew up with them and Revenge of the Sith was always my favorite. But as I grew up, I started noticing all the problems.
What have I done?
The amusing part is that I've discovered a fresh new way to appreciate and enjoy these films even with the bad dialogue.
If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust.
The prequels have so many memeable moments that once you start noticing, it becomes way more entertaining than the actual story. And Revenge of the Sith has some of the most hilarious in the franchise. So here's a few of my favorite memes and silly moments that always put a big smile on my face.
This is where the fun begins.
Twice the pride, double the fall.
Do it. Hold on. This whole operation was your idea.
I am the Senate. But if anything to say about it, I have.
Another happy landing.
I barely scratched the surface of what you can find in this meme goldmine. So when you rewatch Revenge of the Sith this week, keep an eye out. I can guarantee you that even if you don't like the movie, you will be entertained. I'd like to give a shout out to BamTube TV for inviting me, and thank you guys for watching. Movie Slinger out.
Thank you, Nuwan, for pointing that out. I love this wholly original take. Focusing on the memes is something that I never really see anyone point out, and it's something that I love about this prequel trilogy. You can honestly go back and rewatch this entire trilogy just looking for the memeable and quotable moments, and you will have just as much, if not even more fun. So thank you once again, Nuwan, for that unique take. And now for Josh from The Movie Apprentice and the Spike-Haired Podcast.
Thanks to Brett Murphy for having me on, and a big happy anniversary to Revenge of the Sith, the best of the prequel trilogy, purely because stuff happened, but most of all, Ewan McGregor's performance, where he's taken a lackluster script and added a certain gravitas to it, delivering on some very emotional moments, and I think we can all agree that Anakin vs. Obi-Wan is arguably the best lightsaber duel of the entire franchise, and Ewan McGregor's performance, where he's heartbroken at Anakin's betrayal, is felt across the board every time. Despite the trilogy not having the most emotional of moments, he manages to pull something out of it, and he has become synonymous with the character of Obi-Wan. So that is why I think that Revenge of the Sith is the best.
Again, I completely agree. Ewan McGregor is by far the best part to come out of this prequel trilogy, and Battle of the Heroes is top tier lightsaber duels. It might be my favorite too, it's super close, it is neck and neck with Duel of the Fates. And now last but certainly not least is Mac from Classic Cinemac.
Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith is my favorite of the prequel trilogy, because what it does greatly is how it builds momentum up to the original trilogy. It sets up what the original trilogy wanted and needed to be, with the rise of Darth Vader, the rise of Emperor Palpatine. But what I really love the most are the epic lightsaber fights, and especially with how action-packed this movie is. I mean, the opening spaceship battle over Coruscant, the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight, General Grievous spinning his lightsabers all around. It is probably one of the most Star Wars movies you can ever get from a Star Wars franchise. That is why Revenge of the Sith is just so badass.
I too adore that about this prequel trilogy. Like I said earlier in my bit, I love how everything comes full circle, and it does lead really nicely into the original trilogy. I think they did a really good job at tidying that all up and connecting all the dots. And again, with Revenge of the Sith, it has some of the most epic battles in Star Wars, whether it's the lightsaber duels or the bigger Clone Wars style battles. All of them are done very well and they look fantastic. So that is all for today's video, folks. I would like to say thank you once again to all of my guests who joined me today. Be sure to check out all of their content. They are amazing creators, and you absolutely should be subscribing to their channels. I will have all of their links in the description. Be sure to let us know down in the comments section if you agree or disagree and how you think Revenge of the Sith holds up on its 15th anniversary. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that like button, and if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and dinging that little bell icon, that way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. As always, stay safe, thank you so much for watching, and that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.